7 girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. You got some dough. 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. My whole asshole. 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. I got the route patrol on the cat patrol. Those that wanna make sure that my gas gets closed. The year's 94 and my trunk is raw. In my rear view is the motherfucking law. 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. 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 99.
Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio / RV dining room, directly located just outside the city of Little Port-au-Prince, Ohio, formerly known as Springfield, Ohio. Now, I will be your pilot and navigator here tonight, folks of the interwebs, for this shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. We're going to be talking mounds, murders, and an ancient alien cargo cult. Kind of a continuation of a series we've previously done on the Occult Rejects on the Nuwaubian Nation and their former mound, ancient Egyptian city in rural Georgia known as Tamaray. In that conversation, I was joined with the host of the Occult Rejects, Nick, and fellow Occult Reject, Theresa, in those previous conversations. And part 3 here tonight. So I want to welcome Nick and Theresa to the conversation. Appreciate you all joining me here for a part 3 in the conversation regarding the ancient alien cargo cult known as the Nuwaubian Nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Woohoo. I'm excited.
One of the most,
on the
I think this is one of the most interesting topics that people don't really talk about. You know what I mean? Because this dude who was in charge of this cult was one of the most influential folks. As I was trying to explain this topic the other day on the Clint Eastwood program. Before we get too far into the complexities and nuances of the conversation here this evening and into the tale, just on its face, this is a very interesting topic. It's just very difficult to kind of explain, right? Because Dwight York, the leader of the cult, who's in prison for multiple lifetimes in the Supermax prison in Colorado for child sex trafficking and kid diddling, he's ostensibly in prison and not the leader of the cult. The cult still continues. Who knows how that really works out? But Dwight York himself, a very influential character in hip hop. I like to describe him as the man who invented hip hop, because in large part he kind of did, and he's very much venerated by many musical acts, from Jay-Z, as we heard the Jay-Z song in the intro, right? Which I like to call that intro the mashing up of ancient alien cargo cults with the Beach Boys song and the Jay-Z song being the Beach Boys Manson process connections, and then Jay-Z, of course, connected to the Nuwaubian Nation. Yep. As we went over in some of our previous shows on the topic, he filmed, his first music video in the Nuwaubian Nation headquarters?
Yep, Jay-Z. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously Dwight York, super influential character. I call him the inventor of hip hop, which again is a very, I think, practical way to look at his influence on the genre of music and not just the influence, but the production. He produced a number of folks, including Africa. I always mess his name up. Boombata. Yeah. So very tight connections. One of the most obvious other connections to the Nuwaubian Nation cult is relative to hip hop music is the band Outkast. They infamously kind of portrayed the philosophies of this cult. So before we try to get any further into that, I'd like to introduce the folks of the interwebs to the unofficial sponsor here for tonight's discussion, the 2004 Grammy appearance of the band Outkast.
Fellow countrymen, it is the year 2999, the eve of the year 3000. Mother Earth is dying. Her hills in the valley, once filled with the beauteous sounds, now lay fallow and silent.
Can you? Did I do that wrong here? Let me bring this up.
Oh no, that was working fine.
All right.
Fellow countrymen, it is the year 2999, the eve of the year 3000. Mother Earth is dying. Her hills and the valley.
Notice Jack Black doing the introduction here. He's he pays homage to L. Ron Hubbard and his Tenacious D songs. I'm just saying, might be a Scientologist, might be an ancient alien cargo cultist.
From across the universe, a rebel band of outcasts has arrived, bringing with them the hopes and dreams of a new generation. A generation imbued with the spirit of song and the true rhythm of life. One can only hope that their arrival will signal the dawn.
He's describing how the ancient alien cargo, the ancient aliens got here and built. The next philosophy is that they built the pyramids and the mounds. And Outkast is kind of dancing that out here and singing about it at the 2004 Grammys.
The natives are definitely restless. 1, 2, 3. My baby don't mess around because she loves me so.
Yeah, so that was right when Dwight York, the leader of this cult, he got hemmed up by the feds and thrown into the Florida Supermax prison. And around the time of that, the Nuwaubians decided, I got a good idea. Let's go on national television and sing and dance about our cult.
Damn. What timing.
So I would declare Outkast one of the quote-unquote Nuwaubian millionaires. And as we discussed in our previous conversation, this cult that originated in New York City went to Georgia in the early 90s, led by this iconic figure from the hip-hop scene who had this whole Nation of Islam kind of offshoot. He started mashing together certain occult values and principles from the 70s through the 80s into the early 90s before he built this monstrosity in that's not it. Built this monstrosity down in rural Georgia in Putnam County, which I would like to point out relative to many discussions on here on Operation GCD, the Society of Cincinnati connection and the name game of the Mounds, these ancient mounds that exist that I think have a very deep occult ritualistic nature to many groups, including clearly the Nuwaubians. They built this huge pyramid thing intentionally on a mound and adopted this philosophy that the Nuwaubian Nation, the followers of Dwight York, were the mound builders. And in Putnam County, Georgia, which is where this structure used to exist and has since been destroyed, the cult still exists. Structure destroyed, cult good to go. Putnam County is named after Israel Putnam, a general from the Connecticut chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. So not sure why the society wanted to name all these places, these mound sites after their folks, but it's clearly the society name game, as I like to call it. So yeah, we discussed this giant pyramid. I don't think this was the pyramid that had the nightclub, but in this huge compound, they had a nightclub, which is apparently a pretty popular nightclub, given when, according to the Georgia investigators who busted the place and shut it down for operating a nightclub without a license. Apparently the revenue's very good. They were letting folks in from not just within the Nuwaubian Nation, from the outer parts of the community. And given Dwight York's hip hop connections, I imagine they probably had some good musical acts come through there, right? Maybe even Jay-Z.
I would guess that's why it was so popular. Maybe people were hoping to catch a glimpse of somebody, right?
Right. Maybe Outkast performed the wonderful 2004 Grammy performance in this nightclub in the center. I think it was the brownstone kind of sandstone looking pyramid there in the middle, not the black one. I believe the other one had it opposite the obelisk that existed there as well. But this is a pretty substantial compound, well financed, right? By the looks of things, right? It's not just nickels and dimes. I mean, we're talking numerous pyramids. We got a Sphinx over here. I mean,
that Wesley Snipes money right there.
What's that?
That Wesley Snipes money right there.
Yeah.
Well, and their headquarters in Brooklyn is nothing to sneeze at either. It's like,
no, it was impressive.
You're right. I forgot to include that picture. That's
something I do want to add. I actually went there and filmed that place. It's in the show that we did together. I mean, it's a decent size. And they told me they own almost that whole block. They owned like a few sections down the road. And if you actually start going online, I think I showed you, JJ. We might have mentioned it on the show. I did show that there was multiple properties owned by the same name.
And I wish I would have included that, but that's where I was going to turn it back over to you. So this is their Georgia facility, but yeah, and I'm going to turn it back over to you and Theresa to discuss kind of what we've recapped before on regarding this cult. And that's a good teeing off point because you went to their Brooklyn location. This is only one of their locations. They had a Chicago location. Right.
I think there was even one upstate.
Other locations in their previous shows, I believe, right?
Yeah. I think there was pictures supposedly from somewhere like I think upstate too that like showed them kind of like
that's right.
And there was saying that I forgot which artists I think might have performed there or was like known to be associated with that group. But yeah, they had I think another.
And they had Canadian locations too, right, Theresa? Didn't they have some Toronto? I believe it was.
I did find like a much smaller, but like there is like Nuwaubian like locations in the Toronto area. Yes,
like a bookstore, right?
Yeah, it's like some tiny and honestly, a not very nice area of the city, but like yeah, it was just like this little tiny looks like a makeshift church kind of place where it'd be like New Community Church or something, and it's just like this one unit. It was kind of like that type of place.
Yeah, so I kind of delved into these subjects of the cult, even though Dwight York went to prison in 2004. That again, right around the same time as that wonderful performance from the Outcast Nuwaubian folks. We kind of delved into the subject before that that this cult continued on, right? Like the people, like even the people in Georgia, but not just the people in Georgia, because obviously the bookstores in like Toronto,
and Brooklyn is still
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You met some of the Nuwaubians of Brooklyn, right, Nick?
Yes, I did. Yeah, when I went, I went with a small kind of like, or maybe I did go with the big camera. I don't remember, but I took a camera with me, and I took my drone. I guess, kind of like, unfortunately, like I filmed with the camera first, and they said that they had already seen me because I was quite obvious. Like I had a stand and everything. I was zero fucks. I was out in the streets aiming this fucking camera.
You had your drone too, and that's it got.
That's well, yeah. But the thing is, the guy was like, "Dude, we watched you for like 15 minutes film the building. So as soon as we saw the drone go up, that's why one of the dudes came out. But he already knew, like they were already watching.
Yeah, they were on full scale alert at that point. Right?
Yeah. So like the guy came out as soon as I sent the drone up, and started busting my chops. But then like I started talking to him. Because I was like, oh, he's like, why are you filming this shit? I said, oh, your architecture is insane, dude. I said, I'm into the occult, and I think your building is amazing, And I guess like he took that as like, a compliment, and like basically just diarrhea started coming out of his mouth. He just started telling me about, oh, do you know who I think it was Dr. Dwight York is? He's like, oh, Wu-Tang,
Malachi Z, right? Malachi Z, right?
He was bragging that Wu-Tang's been there. He's bragging that Jay-Z filmed his first video there. He was going on. And it was to the point to where he was like, if I would let you in now, he says, but I can't. But he's like, come here. I think there was like Saturdays or Sundays. It was open to the public like every day. He's like, you should come check it out. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be back. But no, I mean,
they had that bookstore there, right? Like you can go, like anyone can go there. I think anyone could go inside the actual headquarters in Brooklyn like one day a month, right? Isn't that what he told you?
Or like one day a week or something like that. And the bookstore is always open. So, and they even said that some of the stuff that's on the outside, they actually like made themselves. Like the architecture that they put on the building was like done with like I think cement and clay that they made or something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's pretty elaborate.
I think
I can't be certain. It might have a nightclub.
Then he was telling me that they own a shit ton of blocks, and he was even saying, he's like, "Why do you think it's so clean over here?" He's like, "You can't even spit on the streets." he's like, we run this whole area. I was like, "Oh,
yeah." Which I don't care what part of Brooklyn you're in, to own a few blocks, that's some money right there.
I will say though, where they are. When he did say that, I did look around and I was like, not for nothing, this is actually pretty clean out here, considering other parts of Brooklyn. Right. Like it wasn't a bad area visually.
Right.
I was like, all right. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have. It seemed like they have the whole place on lockdown pretty good from the way they interacted with you, right? Like they're not letting any strangers come in there without any sort of interference, right? They're not putting up with any shenanigans, which. You know
what I thought was crazy though? You remember when I went
to a certain degree?
I went to go check the amount of sexual predators in that area, and it was like 90 something, like within such a small area. I was
Oh
like,
my
what?
God.
Well,
So
Yeah.
it's like the area, if it's well populated, who knows?
yeah, now that you mention it, this should all be a high alert to anyone who saw this scene, because the cult, you see all these kids running around this Georgia compound, which the locals, there are videos that show like town meetings and stuff and other presentations where the locals were clearly concerned about the youth that are running around this situation here, because the cult leader did get put away for child sex trafficking and kid diddling, and so that does seem to be a problem. Maybe they don't see that as a problem internally to the cult. Maybe that's why there's a high concentration near their Brooklyn headquarters.
I just was like, okay, the streets are clean, but you got creeps out there.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe they
Right.
are the creeps, though. That's the thing. That's why they're there.
Well, there seems to be some sort of crossover there, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
what I'm saying. Maybe. So what I'm saying is maybe they have a different worldview. Like Scientology, they don't view children apparently as children. They view them as old aliens in like a little person's body, right? So that's why they can put them to work for 72 hours a day at the age of like 10. You know what I mean?
That's why they're child actors and stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, put them to work. They don't need a break.
I think the thing that stood out for me a lot when we were researching it in the last episode on Occult Rejects was like how prevalent a lot of this cult's beliefs are, like in hip hop and like in entertainment.
Yeah.
That as like, a young suburban white girl growing up in Canada, like I had no idea like where these ideas came from, and actually how like seriously inherently racist the ideas are. And like, yeah, with alien cults and how much those beliefs also tie into other beliefs like Mormonism or like Islam, and like where it's very interesting. Quite a web it weaves. But yeah, it's like I think we made a connection when I was watching a Dave Chappelle comedy special.
Yo, that's what really kind of.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I do remember that. Now.
I happened to be watching, I forget which one it is, one of his Netflix comedy specials. And I love Dave Chappelle's comedy. I think he's hilarious. But at the end, he just had this like saying, or at the end of the credits, and he has that flag with the C, and it's like the red, the black, and the green. And then there was this saying, and I looked up the saying.
Yeah, the keys at the crossroads or something.
Yes, the keys at the crossroads. That's what it was saying. And then I went back and copied the lyrics into Google, and it was a song from some rap group. I forget what it was, but a rap group heavily associated with Dwight York and the Nuwaubian Nation. And that's how then we like amalgamated this whole thing. And I was like, oh man, all those acts growing up, like in the early 2000s, like Outkast, Common,
PM Dawn, which Chappelle was close with too. So I mean, I'm sure there's an influence.
Yeah, and like we said, Africa Bombata.
Dwight York's son was a producer for. You all might remember. I don't recall the acts, but a number of popular acts in the 90s and 2000s, right?
Yeah, and then even not to link it to current events, but like the whole Diddy stuff.
Wow,
like
you beat me to it.
Oh, sorry, JJ. But yeah, no, it like totally
that's
comes.
Fine. We're on the same track here for sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
if
you think about it, because there was Nick brought up, and this you're discussing the Chappelle stuff. I think that was the second part in the series we did there on the Occult Rejects there back about a year ago, right? I feel like, and if you recall, Nick brought up in that conversation as well that Dwight York. I think Dwight York Jr., the son of the cult leader, at least whatever his name was implicated in a possible conspiracy and coup of his father, along with one of the other rappers. Right? Nick probably recalls it.
Prodigy from jail was writing letters to some news people, hip hop news people, and he had wrote in the letter that he thought that there was rumors that it was quite possible that York's son and Jay-Z.
There we go. Yep.
Had him set up so they could take over the thing.
Back to old Jay-Z, friends with Marino Abramovic, doing business deals with NXIVM's chief legal counsel.
This dude even had a problem with Jay-Z too. I think it was Prodigy. I think he was supposed to go on tour and open up for him or something, and only did like a few shows.
Yeah,
and they canceled on him.
Yeah, like
there was like a weirdness between them.
I remember you saying that now, and like Jay-Z just gets to be the point where like, is there a creep? Like now that Diddy's in jail, is there a creep? And like R. Kelly's in jail, Like, is there a creepier dude in the hip hop rap game that's out on the street still? You know what I mean? Than
I
Jay-Z.
think there's a few.
Might be that. It's probably a close race between a few of them, right? But Jay-Z's
so.
definitely on top, I think.
Maybe he's the grandmaster. Who knows?
Nice. I've actually never seen this movie, but I do like Kurt Russell. In fact, we just did a
Yo, he does. Holy shit.
cult review.
The thing.
Of,
wow.
Big Trouble in Little China. So I definitely appreciate the compliment for sure.
The thing. That's a good movie.
I haven't watched it, but I do like. I'm a big Kurt Russell fan, so I'll definitely.
That's a good weird one.
Definitely have to watch that. But yeah, so all of this cult stuff, numerous cities, all this stuff going on, and the the person down here in the Georgia section, the guy who did all the security, right, for this whole compound, right, was none other than Blade, Mr. Marvel, Wesley Snipes here, and his Amon-Ra security company. So he was and he was financing a lot of it with his Amon-Ra production company, his movie production company, which brought us these wonderful films such as Blade 1, 2, and 3. All three of the Blades.
Wow.
And the in regards to Outcast and Wesley Snipes, I think we covered this maybe in the first podcast there on the Occult Rejects in the first part of our series. There's the back in 2000 when they were really building up the Putnam County location there. I was about to call it Amon-Ra, Tama-Re. These silly names they got: Amon-Ra, Tama-Re, the city of Tama-Re. But the Wesley Snipes there, his Amon-Ra production company is the Royal Guard of Amon-Ra, is his security company there, and that's his corporate. He was still running this thing just a few years ago, 2017. But yeah, so he was doing the security there. But back in 2000, when they were really building up the place, they wanted to. The local media caught on and had a lot of questions, right? Because suddenly Wesley Snipes is in town with this weird security company, right, trying to buy up some property across the street from the already huge compound, right? So the locals were like, well, why do you guys need more land? And why does your security company want to open up a paramilitary training exercise place across the street, right? Because that's what was going down. He's like, hey, we do security here, but we want to do like paramilitary stuff across the street, so we're going to buy this land. And the county was like, the hell you are, because they didn't care how much money these people had. They were like, it's never happening. We're never going to zone that for you, because they wouldn't zone it, right? So they would never make the deal. But it was this company right here, owned by actor Wesley Snipes. And again, it's definitely you can, if you want to write him, you can write him. I mean, he's got an address here. Wesley Q Snipes at P.O. Box 121160, Clemont, Florida 34712. I don't really consider that doxing if you finance the sexual predator such as Dwight York. But if anyone wants to ask him about their questions, because seemingly he's never been forced to ask these questions, and I find that odd. He's made a resurgence in Hollywood post Al Capone prosecution for these activities related to this cult. They didn't get him for the kid deal, and they got him for the tax evasion, right? He's come back to Hollywood. No one said, hey, buddy, what the hell were you doing down there in Georgia financing that kid diddler Dwight York? You know what I mean? It's weird to me that no one's asked that question.
Just turned a blind eye, you know, because it's like all
big time,
all connected.
Big time. But yeah, so that was the situation with Snipes, and he this was an article from the Macon Telegraph back in 2000 discussing exactly what I'm talking about in regards to Outcast and Snipes being the quote unquote Nuwaubian millionaires. That's this article.
Oh boy.
You all probably, Nick and Theresa, I think we went over this in the first episode, but it's discussing, you know, the Nuwaubian representative is basically confirming Snipes is a member. And again, this is a huge situation. So Tama-Re, the huge compound there, sat on 257 acres. I'm sorry, the 476 acres. That's right here. And then Snipes was trying to buy 257 acres across the street for his production company, Amon-Ra Films, which owns the Royal Guard of Amon-Ra, the company planning to purchase the acreage, according to Snipes' spokesperson. So they Snipes' spokesperson wasn't really confirming it. However, a Nuwaubian that he was a member of the cult, but a Nuwaubian representative said Thursday that Snipes is one of many "quote unquote" Nuwaubian millionaires planning to purchase property in Putnam County. Yada yada yada. So they're confirming it right there that there's numerous Nuwaubian millionaires, right? So that's interesting. I think that's because Outkast is doing the songs, right? So they're probably one of the Nuwaubian millionaires, right? I think we kind of discussed that as well. They're, I'm sure they're not the only ones, but Jay-Z perhaps, he may fall in that category.
Yeah, and that land, that's a large size. It's like as big as Disneyland. I just looked it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a lot of property, right?
A lot of property. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and no one said, "Hey, Wesley, what are you doing? What were you doing down there in 500 acres of rural Georgia?"
Right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And everyone wants to focus on, and fair enough, the Epstein situation should be focused on. I'm not saying that at all, but there's obviously other situations that related to kid trafficking and kid diddling, right? Like what occurred here and what the cult leader is sitting in prison for. And again, despite him being in prison, it seems like maybe a mafia type relationship where he might still be the mob boss, but he's like in prison type of deal, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying that's for certain. I'm just saying it almost has that impression about it, right? Because he still is very much him and Africa Bambaataa both who both have been under these. Bambaataa has not avoided his kid diddling charges either in recent years or claims, right? Is the underling of Dwight York, if you will. He was York produced his early work to start hip hop, right? So. Yeah. These people are still venerated in modern day hip hop, right? So I mean, it's to a certain degree, it's something's accepted as far as these people still being, they're still accepted in certain circles, is what I'm saying, right? And that's all I'm saying is Epstein, big deal, but obviously, what's going on with a cult like this? Do we really know the full story about the kid diddling or the kid trafficking that was going on here, just outside of Atlanta, a city with a lot of child trafficking, pornography, and murder problems? Like the Atlanta child murders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems like it's an area that's kind of this. They've had a lot of problems with kids, and there's still not a lot of answers to what went on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really don't know the extent that the cult had influencing the surrounding area, I think.
Yeah, well, they're still there, and that's a good point because that's kind of our conversation tonight: the influence in the surrounding area. Because not only are they still in Brooklyn, as Nick met them and videotaped in our previous conversations. They're clearly still in Georgia, and I stumbled across a YouTube video, kind of an investigative journalist documentary on the Nuwaubian Nation relative to the murder of two elderly folks back in 2014. So 10 years after York goes to prison. So ostensibly, 9 or 10 years after the city of Tamaray has been seized by the state and destroyed, right? All those pyramids, completely leveled. No more nightclub for anybody. That's gone. And that was 10 years before these murders that we're talking about tonight. But this investigative journalist seems to have found some connections. And I think did a pretty good job in building a circumstantial case that this elderly folks' murder is related to a ritual human sacrifice by folks who subscribe to the ideals of the Nuwaubian Nation. And it just so happened to occur on a mound site there in Putnam County, Georgia. And so as far as their influence in the community, it seems like, according to the sheriff in that video too, it seems like they have a lot of influence in the community down there still.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
What, before we go over some of the clips here and introduce the folks of the interwebs to some of the this murder situation and this investigative journalist take on it, what were your all's thoughts on the video as far as I know you all picked up on some important things that I kind of glossed over because I don't necessarily pay attention to those things, the Freemasonry aspects of the whole situation. I thought that was an intriguing a discovery, or at least something we may have briefly touched on in the past but haven't really delved that far into.
Yeah, and there was even stuff that I came across about him now that I was like, how did I not see this when we did the first part? I was actually I can't believe I missed this stuff.
We were distracted by their magical symbols of their building.
Yeah, by that guy running out at me.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about the stuff that I had on the slides now? Or?
Yeah, we'll bring that up. I just wanted to try to get your all. Bring it up here in a few minutes when we get to that
I
point
wasn't
in
sure.
the overview of the video. No, you're fine. What I just wanted to see what your and Teresa's general thoughts were, because we kind of briefly touched on it in the past that this cult was around. I personally didn't think they had this kind of influence in the community still, or had this kind of impact on the community for that matter, right? I didn't know there was this. I really didn't delve that far into it. I mean, I knew there was a little bit of beef in the early 2000s with the cult and the local administration, the sheriff included. I didn't realize that beef continued on for so many years.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think in the video that you sent, what struck me most was like the strong, like anti-white sentiment of like
Yeah.
what's coming directly from the pulpit of like the Nuwaubian preaching. It's aggressive. It's like, you know, with the reverse Uno KKK. Like it's this exact same thing. It's black supremacy. It was like shocking a little bit to hear it like in a church style setting. Like I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's harsh. So I'm sure like that would affect, you know, the people listening to it. And I don't know, that definitely. And then yeah, the Masonic element, like that's what I thought of right away when I saw the video. I was like, oh, this sounds like maybe the victims were targeted because of that. I mean, it's so hard to prove because we can't know like who's a member of what lodge and
Yeah.
you know,
It
but
gets kind of murky, doesn't it? But it does certainly, like, there is a lot of indicators, it seems like, to point to some folks who subscribe to this theology that perpetrated this crime. And the crime being the murder of a very elderly 80-year-old, a couple of octogenarians in a very rural, or not rural, but very ritzy kind of lake area, in a fairly rural area of Georgia there in, you know, Putnam County. It's not the most secluded place, but it's fairly rural. But yeah, so they're murdered in their home in a very seemingly like, you know, professional kind of like, you know, situation. Speaking of professional hits, on a day like where homeboy gets murked in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, like there ain't no cameras around there to catch the guy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like this was almost just as brazen as that, the murder of this elderly couple. Because to this day, there's never been a clear indicator of how the assailants got in and out of the house. But what ends up happening is, to say, when I infer this is a ritual human sacrifice on a mound, is because they transported the victim out of this house and murdered one of the victims on a lake on top of the mound location. And there's really not a necessary reason which to do that. You're clearly picking up an 80-something-year-old woman and carrying her. She's not walking like that, and it's not easy to do that. There's no real purpose to do that. And the man, they ended up lopping his head off and leaving his body. I mean, not to get too graphic, but they lopped his head off, and I mean, as it happened, you know what I mean? I mean, they lopped his head off and left his body in the garage, but took the head. You know what I mean? So like, there definitely screams like some ritual stuff going on. I mean, is that kind of what you gathered from some of the incidents around this Nick, the kind of the ritual purposes? I mean, they even kind of covered some of the lopping up of the head as far as an occult situation in the video, right?
When it comes to this situation, I had, you know, really had like two theories on that. Neither that it was ritualistic, like you're saying, or maybe it was still ritualistic in a different sense where this might be a stretch, but like, you know, Muslim or Islam, they can have like certain punishments for certain things.
Sure.
And he was very much into, he had his own Shriners, and he also had a lot of like, you know, and the reason I'm bringing up the Shriners is they have a lot of kind of like Islam look to them, their art and their symbolism. And I mean, he was into stuff like that as well. So it's like, I wonder if that was even just almost like this is just the style of punishment for what I think you have done.
No, that's certainly a good way to look at it. I was
you're talking like some eye for an eye type of punishment, you know, right? Well, like he would have been killed in a sense for blasphemy, and his wife was kind of killed in the sense if you were trying to be a martyr in a sense. Like, and the thing is, what if they didn't want to have to kill her, but they had to in order to kill him because she was there? She would have been shown as possibly as a martyr because it wasn't.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, but it kind of negates the purpose of transporting her, right?
Yeah, I feel like the ritual.
That had to have been done on purpose. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why not then just like stab her or shoot her or something?
Well, that no, I'm not
Exactly. That's what I'm
when you
saying. They
keep
went
it
through an
purpose.
effort to move this woman 5 miles across the lake, and
Yeah.
apparently
With-
tie her down to something at a very specific location. I would argue that specific location is a mound site because that lake is flooded, as we've discussed, or folks of the interwebs have probably heard, at least here on Operation GCD. I talk about all these valleys that were flooded and the mounds that sit now at the bottom of these lakes that were part of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This lake is no different. Lake Occony is no different. It was flooded, and there's a, mound site right there. I would argue that's why they transported her to a very specific part of the lake and tied her down to that point in the lake, was a ritual purpose.
Yeah.
The head thing, I understand what you're saying about the head thing. That is a very, especially when you're dealing with Islamic stuff, that does seem to be a
but I'm
popular
saying even
thing,
the way
lopping-
she was,
lopping folks' heads off.
the way
Yeah.
she was killed is also, I think, you still gives credit to that, even with I'm saying Islamic punishment.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
The
no, for
other
sure.
I'm saying it
thing,
could be still ritualistic. Well, one thing I do want to bring up that I just want to say real
Yeah, it
quick,
could definitely be both. No, you're right. It could definitely be both.
in case I forget to bring it up, something that I did think was maybe it's not weird, but to me, I just thought, this is a little weird. They didn't own a boat, but they did have a dock.
yeah.
So I mean,
Right.
I mean, maybe the dock was there when they had the house. But did they own a boat at some point? But like, if you didn't
I
have
don't
a
know.
boat,
They're
I don't
so
know why
old.
you would have a dock there, unless you were receiving things maybe from a boat.
I just think it was
yeah.
they were just retiring to a lake community. You know what I mean? Maybe they lived there for a while. I don't know that because, well, they know I do. They know that they moved. They moved there around 1993, the same time Dwight York moved down there from the same city, New
Maybe it's
Jersey.
the same dock then. It could just be a dock that was there. They just didn't have a boat in it.
Right, but I'm saying they did live there at a time where maybe they were younger in their 60s and they were able to use.
Maybe they
the dock,
sold their
right?
boat. They had one before. Who knows?
Dwight York had a boat. He has a boat.
Well, what has been established, law enforcement has not established how the assailants entered the facility. They do know they left via boat and then again did some weird ritual stuff with the old elderly lady over there. I don't know that they ever recovered the gentleman's head. I don't.
No, never.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
No. So the other thing about the decapitation, though, that I found interesting was in the video that you sent. The creator of the video was making a good point that in like Egyptian like burial customs or death rituals or whatever, decapitation is like a second death. Like
Right.
it's to prevent your soul from like passing over properly and like disturbing your afterlife experience. Like it's very, disrespectful to the body.
Right.
So it was
That's a great point.
did they do that on purpose?
And I'm glad you brought that up. I have that timestamped as well, talking about how it could be the occult aspects of this. Again, I think as Nick pointed out, it could be both the punishment and the occult aspect to the same action of lopping this dude's head off. Because I've seen some folks get real aggressive with that sort of thing in the Islamic world. I was in Saudi Arabia back in what's that?
Who's to say those punishments aren't have like occultism already in there to begin with?
Probably,
it's certainly possible, especially when you're talking with something about the situation here, where there not only seems to be some sort of racial tensions, there may be some sort of Masonic back and forth as well involved in the situation, and also, and it's important to note as well that there seems to be a relationship between this elderly couple and the cult, as the cult appears to have a member of the cult appears to have murdered their adult son back in 2000. He was a 47-year-old man that was apparently murdered in a crack deal by a member of the Nuwaubian Nation.
Really? I didn't think I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
What?
So this is well, I'm not that they infer that could be the situation in the video. I don't think there's any record that this guy that was the apparent murder of their son. I think there's any record that there's no membership card. He does have a kind of a Nation of Islam name, and apparently he at least had connections to the cult. That's been established, right? Whether or not he's a member, different story. But yeah, so their son. This first of all, this is the Mound site that I was referring to, or under the Lake Oconee, and again Putnam County. But yeah, their son was murdered. Mark Dermond was murdered in August of 2000, August 30th.
Yeah.
The newspaper article I read right here, arrest made in slaying of Dunwoody man. I guess that's Dunwoody. A Dunwoody man was shot and killed near Atlanta University on his birthday Mark Dermond, 47, died Tuesday night after being shot 3 times in the neck and torso. All right. A friend, Grady Harris Jr., 51, was shot in the leg, said Atlanta police officer John Quigley Harris. Said John Quigley. Harris survived the 10:15 p.m. shooting. Oh, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Way to go. That's always a hot spot for hood rat activity in any city. Early Wednesday, homicide detectives arrested Shatik Hinnett, 28, on a charge of murder. So he apparently had connections to the cult. That was in 2000. So, I don't know if there's an ongoing beef between these specific elderly folks and Dwight York and gang. Who knows? Because, again, the other weird part I thought in the video, and I'll put a link to this fellow's video in the description of the show. But the other thing I thought was strange is they came from the same town in New Jersey, within a 5-mile radius of one another. And they both, Dwight York and this couple, both moved to rural Georgia within 5 miles of each other again. What are the odds?
Super weird.
Yeah.
Right? And then they have another relationship. So then let's call that relationship number 1. And relationship number 2, their son gets murdered by apparently a member of the cult, or at least somebody has connections to the cult, in a crack deal gone wrong, apparently. That's what the later newspaper article on September 1st says, crack deal gone wrong. I don't know what a crack deal gone right is. You're still going to be a crack deal, but crack deal got wrong apparently is this.
Because you don't get shot and killed.
I guess.
Dude got murdered.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's winning from a regular crack deal, but crack deal gone really wrong, murdered. Yeah, so let's call that relationship number 2. And then 14 years later, they're getting murked, like literally murked professional hit style in their home on Lake Oconee, right? By a cult by ostensibly, again, members of a cult or connections to a cult, right? Who, that's what's been alleged in this guy's, again, good, I thought very well researched and interviewing the sheriff as far as trying to figure out what the connections are to this murder in this cult. And it seems to be that's relationship number 3 was the murder of these old folks. I'm just saying, it seems like there's a lot of connections, right, between the victims of this murder and this cult. Again, they're kind of tertiary connections because simply just based on proximity of where they live. But I mean, what are we talking, like 1,200, 1,500 miles probably between locations, New Jersey to Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hike.
Yeah, that's an odd place for both of them to move. So
yeah, I think if I'm almost correct, I think Dwight York was like under 2 miles away from like the Russell when they were in Jersey. Like, I thought that was even crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, they were real close. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's very odd, right, that they're so close in one town, and then whatever 1,000+ miles south of there, they moved to the same location and they're just as close in this new location. I mean, it's certainly possible, right? But then they have this relationship with the son apparently getting murdered by someone related to the cult. Again, that's relationship number 2. By that point in time, I think it's well past coincidence, in my opinion, the proximity thing, right? By relationship number 3, when they're potentially suspects in the murder of these folks, or related to this cult as well, the suspects are apparently. I mean, at some point in time, there's clearly a relation. You have to determine there's clearly a relationship between the Dermond family and this cult.
I just wonder if,
you brought up a good point with the. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Theresa. I was just
no, go finish what you were going to say.
No, I was rambling that you all brought up a good point with the Masonic connections, right? Because this dude, this dude. I'm saying this is my suspicion. The elderly gentleman who was murdered with his head lopped off. He owned like over 100 restaurants, right? Franchises, and right. So I presume
Hardy's
part of. He's probably part of a club, right? So that's why when you all brought up the Dwight York Freemasonry thing, which I completely missed in my previous analysis and our previous discussions, I was not paying any attention to that, right? I mean, we kind of point out the Shriner stuff, but I was not paying attention. So maybe the relationship is some sort of secret society type of situation, right?
Might have been, yeah. Or I just wonder, was it like a warring Masonic like lodge thing, or was it like a former employee? Did they employ Dwight York or one of his kids maybe like at one time, or a cult member?
Right.
Like, it's so hard to know. Maybe they were jealous because he's like, sounds like the victim was super successful in business. I don't know.
It's funny you mention that because in that video there that investigative journalist put together, which I should just look up his name so I keep forgetting it. Eric
Yeah.
Allen. Eric
There we
Allen's
go.
his name. Again, I'll put a link of it here. We're going to play a couple clips from it as well. But yeah, it's interesting because one of the clips he put in there was the cult advocating to their followers to not be employed by the white man. And, if you're employed by the white man, you're a slave, and, that kind of mentality. So it kind of speaks to what you're saying. Maybe there was some cult members that worked for some of this dude's franchise restaurants, some sort of relationship. Maybe it's a legitimate relationship like that. Maybe it's not a secret society thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it has nothing to do with kid diddling or drug trafficking, which is where my mind goes immediately, right? Especially when the cult leader's busted for the kid diddling, and I just always assume when you're running a nightclub of an ancient Egyptian pyramid opposite of an obelisk, call me crazy, but I assume you got some cocaine involved in that situation.
Right. You know what, too? You may have it timestamped, JJ, to bring up later, but the investigative journalist that we're talking about,
Yeah.
he brought up a good point where he found that comment buried on YouTube from like a
Oh, yeah.
Nuwaubian follower, and the comment was hinting towards a decapitation and
I do
saying
have that
like,
time. That's an
we've
excellent point. I
gotta
forgot
like
about that.
we gotta like bring down the white man because he's, I don't know exactly what the comment was saying, but
No,
basically
you're right. It was
implying like,
aggressive.
yeah, to like bring down like the white like business owners, and that, I guess the Nuwaubians feel like the black people are still like enslaved by corporate American white dudes. Like, I don't know,
Right.
some sort of sentiment along those lines. So maybe they felt that this man Russell was that kind of a figure in their community, and they're like, okay, we're going after the guy that owns all the Wendy's and the Hardys.
Exactly.
know.
I think you're on target. I think it's very possible. It's at least a very plausible scenario, right?
Mhm.
So I think we've done a pretty good job of the recap of our previous shows and the cult, and bringing folks up to speed here on the murders related to this cult. Do y'all have anything else you want to add in regards to sort of the recap from our previous shows in the cult, or possibly some thoughts here on this murder before I play the clip here with a greater introduction to the situation?
I don't know. I'll see what you cover here, and then
You see what I got.
yeah. I don't want to jump ahead too. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it seems to be that all this recent. So this was May 2014, but it seems to be the reinterest or the reinvigoration of this case is surrounded back here in April of 2024, when they got touch DNA and the FBI involved, which I remain very circumspect in regard to anything touch DNA, especially when the FBI is involved. However, they seem to have some DNA evidence, and they've upped the ante as far as the reward money goes here. I find that interesting. This remains this seems like a case that should have been solved. Like, that's what I mean by, like, if they have such little evidence, it speaks to me like this is such a professional hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I think. Well, I mean, even the police think it was like definitely like kind of like a hit because nobody got robbed.
Right.
There's no evidence.
Nothing stolen. Yeah.
Maybe
And they're not even convinced they know how the assailants got. They could have. They think they could have been dropped off and left by boat, or they could have come by boat and left by boat. They don't know. And there's no obvious signs of entry either, from my understanding. Like, it was a in and out, very professional style for sure. Yeah.
maybe a job for the Royal Guards of Amun-Ra.
You mean to tell me the paramilitary group associated with this cult?
I don't know.
That was another thing I don't think I knew about until we looked into it, that he actually had like a group of dudes that were like armed and was even like terrorizing the neighborhood kind of at one point.
Yeah, weren't they also the swords?
They have some goon squad rumors about him for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the county was like, you're going to build a paramilitary training facility. The hell you are, because they already had that reputation. You know what I mean? So they didn't want to let the Snipes Royal Guard of Amun-Ra paramilitary force to get a bigger stronghold in the rural Georgia county there. I'm sure he's looking at the sheriff's response in this video. He looks weathered. I mean, looks like he's fought a war with these folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's been pretty. But yeah, I'm going to play a clip here, just a quick introduction. Then you'll see the sheriff, and they introduce the the possibilities of this being a cult situation.
Head was decapitated, and we do not know the whereabouts of his head. She's found a good 6 miles away down the lake. This is not some rapidly flowing
Drone
river.
footage. I figured you'd appreciate that,
I wasn't
Nick.
going to include a cult in this episode if it was clear that they didn't have anything to do with these murders. But after days of obsessively researching,
I figured you'd appreciate the drone footage.
it's far
Yeah, I heard you say that. You got jokes.
Oh, all right.
When they hurt you, hurt them back. I think it's just a matter of time before people get the courage.
You can
to
see
start
that body
striking back.
recover there. It's the middle of the lake, right? I mean, like, why would you transport the person there?
They're mischief making, they're troublemakers, they're killers. They are disease.
It was a warm spring day at Lake Oconee.
I'm assuming this is the
Peggy and her
filmmaker,
husband
Eric
went to
Allen.
check on some neighbors of theirs.
Oh my God.
It is a pretty
Oh my
swanky
God.
spot. They look at it.
I'm
You know what I mean?
911.
It's nice. It's some nice. Even if you don't have a boat, there's some nice
I
spots.
think I had somebody dead.
They knocked on the door multiple times. No answer. Finding the door was unlocked, they let themselves in and began calling for Russell and Shirley. They walked through every room in the over 3,000 square foot home. There was no sign of Russell or Shirley, but there was also nothing out of place.
They seem like
and
some nice
no
family
signs of
folks. They
any
don't seem like
struggle.
they're doing
Things
any kind
did
of
change
trafficking
when
and
they
stuff,
walked
but you know.
inside the garage. A man
I'm not
was
trying to
lying
impugn the
lifeless
folks. I'm
on
just
the
saying
garage
when
floor
you're the
in a
victim of
pool
this
of blood.
cult twice
They
for
would
some
later
reason,
find
his
out that
family.
it was
It's
their good friend
odd.
Russell Dermond, but at the time they couldn't be sure of who it was, as Russell had been decapitated and his head was nowhere to be found. About a week
Yikes.
later, 5 miles from the Dermonds' home, Shirley's bloated body floated to the surface of the lake, with two 30-pound concrete blocks tied to her ankles. The seasoned sheriff was completely baffled. Nothing was missing from the home, and he couldn't find any
Yeah, that's
obvious
him
enemies.
earlier this
So
year.
what happened to Russell and Shirley Dermond? When I began researching for this case, I figured it would have some level of mystery and intrigue, but honestly, I had no idea just how deep of a rabbit hole I was getting myself into.
So it seems like he, immediately picked up on the cult situation from the way he starts talking about it. I mean, you kind of get that impression, I think, the way he introduces it, but like as he gets into it later, like his first conversations with the sheriff was kind of like in a passing comment making it about the cult, and then the filmmaker, the investigative journalist, apparently like slept on that idea overnight and was like the next day was like, wait a second, the sex trafficking cult was right down here, and wait a second, somebody associated with that cult may have murdered this, may have been the murder of these people's kid. I think he immediately zoned in on, I think his introduction kind of gives that impression, is through his investigation, he immediately zoned in on this stuff, which begs my question of how do they so puzzled? There's so, if there's such an immediate, like apparent connection to this, some sort of follower of this cult, and they have Georgia Bureau of Investigations, they have FBI involved in the investigation, right? Like, and here we are 10 years later, and they're like, oh, well, we have no idea. We're clueless. We couldn't begin to tell you a suspect. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem plausible to me.
And now they got touch DNA.
Well, now they got touch DNA. Well, that's a miracle. That's solved. It's solved at that point. I'm not saying that touch DNA can't lead to a proper, identification of a suspect, but from the current uses I've seen it, no. Like the Idaho 4 situation, that's a joke of. If you want to call that science, I mean, all right, I don't believe you, but yeah. So that was the quick introduction, at least. And then speaking to the fine details, I guess, of the murders, the more intimate details, what these folks were victimized of. I got a clip here for that. Stand by 1 second, please.
The average person sees around 10,000 online ads daily. Here's how a man's life would change.
I guess I couldn't. I guess I could pay for premium, but
with his bathrobe,
it could also not be
bunched up in
cheap
a pool
bastards.
of blood underneath his body. There were defensive wounds found on the body, showing that a struggle had occurred. Russell's hands were bruised, and there was a large gash on his left finger running down to his palm. The medical examiner stated that Russell was already deceased at the time of his decapitation. On Friday, May 16th, around 2:30 p.m., the sheriff's office received another phone call.
We received a call here at the sheriff's office from some fishermen.
So they seemed pretty puzzled from moment one because, like, they knew she was
Patrol
gone.
boat was dispatched,
like, obviously,
and upon
whoever
extraction of the body, it was
committed her
determined
murder
to
there in the
be
middle of the lake.
87-year-old
They did in such a
Shirley
job that
Dermond.
at least they disguised it for a
Despite being
number of
weighed
days,
down
which
by
I found
two
very interesting.
30-pound concrete blocks,
I don't know what their
it had
intent was
floated
there
to the
because
surface due to
tying her
gases
down,
building up in
it's
the
never. I
body
mean,
from decomposition.
doesn't
I
seem
asked
to ever
Sheriff
be
Sills about the
successful.
area that Shirley was found in, and he explained that when
Parts
the
of the
river
body
was
seem to
dammed and
decompose
the area
and
was
come up to the
flooded,
lake.
they left a few sections of what they call standing timber. Essentially, in these specific areas, you can be in about 50 feet of water and see the tops of trees just below or sticking out right above the surface.
That's because that used to be a town with the mounds on it. That's why the trees are
on
so
my
there.
boat when I was in that area.
You trim it up as high as you can get it, and go slow and watch for. That's what happened
Same
with
sheriff.
Dermond's body. She came up and floated over and caught on the top of a tree. There were two cap blocks in a mesh bag. The cord kind of wrapped around the tree. The top of the tree was maybe just 3 inches or 4 inches beneath the surface. You could see it if you were going slow.
Her skull was fractured and 2 lacerations were found on her head. It's believed that she was killed by blunt force trauma.
So they
being
anchored her to
discarded
one of
in the
those
lake.
trees that stand there
She's
from the flooded town.
A good 6 miles.
They clearly,
away
it
down
sounds like
lake.
the way they
This is
prepared
not
it too.
some
They spent some time
rapidly
doing it, so they weren't really
flowing river. All
alerted.
the
It sounds
things
like
about her
not only
on
committing the
plow,
murder, but
we talked to
dumping the body
hydrologists.
there.
She pretty much came up where she went down.
The area that she was recovered from is undeveloped and can only be accessed by boat. So while we don't necessarily know if the killers used a boat to get to the Dermonds' home, we do know they used a boat to discard of Shirley's body.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That again, I mean, can y'all think of another plausible reason why they would transport this elderly woman out in the middle of this lake and then go through the effort of killing her and tying her down to a very specific location? I tend to think that specific location is of importance to some reason, to some degree.
It's weird that you just leave the husband's body right there in the garage and you can go through all that to get rid of hers.
Right. And you're opening yourself up to a liability of getting caught by going out in the middle of a lake in the middle of the night in a swanky place where, folks are going to pay attention to things out of the ordinary. And you may be operating without lights in the middle of this lake, but I mean, you're probably making noise and tying a body up and anchoring it to a tree. I'm just saying you're introducing yourself to a lot of variables of getting caught in that situation. And it doesn't make a lot of sense unless there's an intended purpose to go do specifically that at that specific location.
Yeah, I was just trying to look up ritual drownings, like the meaning of it, and maybe in native culture. There's definitely maybe the connection there, I think. And also that Lake Oconee, or however you say it, Oconee. I think it is created on top of an Indian community site.
Yeah, big mound.
So probably burial grounds there, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of those Mesoamerican. So I think there's various rituals that have occurred at various style mound sites. These specifically are more like the Mesoamerican style mounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, thinking of an Aztec or something like that kind of ritual sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
I think that those cultures mess with these southeastern mound site cultures.
Yes.
Especially of that era, that alleged era. These are 1200s, 1400s, right?
Yeah.
So with the mounds were going there, with rituals going there.
Yeah. I'm trying to make a definite connection as we're talking, but I think they're
No, I just think I think if y'all agree, I don't think there really is much of a plausible reason. I mean, again, you're opening yourself up to getting busted by doing that. I mean, they could have killed the woman in the home and just left her there. I mean, and where the location, I think the location or the unidentified location of this fellow's head, I think that screams. Again, I'm a very rudimentary understanding of anything occult, but I feel like skulls are very important, and you know what I mean. They seem important to a lot of different occult organizations, ritualistic purposes.
Okay, this is kind of weird. I just found something. So apparently it's called an Egyptian baptism when a person drowns in a river. And if they are consumed like by a crocodile, it's believed that Osiris specifically chose them for a role in the afterlife. It's kind of weird.
That is kind of strange.
Not that there'd be crocodiles in there, but
yeah.
I don't know. I was just like, oh, that's weird. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it definitely is that.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy even asked the sheriff about the cult after he started considering it. Right? Speaking of, I don't think it's, again, as y'all point out here, regarding some of the ritual aspects of the lopping off of the head and everything else like that. It doesn't, like, it seemed to me at least, this guy was pretty attuned to the fact there was some sort of ritual human sacrifice involved here, right? Like he didn't seem like at all like, oh, maybe it's this. Like he's like, oh, it's probably this, right? Like establishing X, Y, and Z reasons why. But like, I don't think he really wants to like introduce that necessarily directly to the sheriff. But I think he kind of broaches that subject a little bit here in this clip.
While sitting down with Sheriff Sills, he made an offhand comment about a cult that used to be in the area a long time ago.
We had a cult here that was probably one of the biggest child molestation cases in the history of America that we made. And that all, and that for many years, that's all anybody wanted to talk about. And that's been so long now, most people have forgotten about that case. But
in the conversation, it didn't seem like he thought it had anything to do with these murders. So I didn't really ask any questions and we moved on. It wasn't until the next day that I said, hey, let's look into that cult that Sheriff Sills mentioned, not thinking that anything would come of it, just that it'd be some interesting conversation for the ride home. I wasn't going to include a cult in this episode if it was clear that they didn't have anything to do with these murders. But after days of obsessively researching this group, I believe it's far from clear. The Nuwaubian Nation was founded.
Yeah, so this dude seems to be pretty in tune to what's going on there. Like this, the ritualistic aspects that may in fact be related to the theology of this cult. I just thought this. I just want to again commend this dude, since I'm using so much of his material here in this discussion, that I really do respect the investigation this fella did. He kind of explains the ins and outs of where he even kind of drove off the path in his investigation, and I appreciate that aspect, the objectivity of it.
Yeah, no, I think he did a really good job. It's great that he like went there like right away in his mind. Well, almost right away the next day. But...
Well, yeah, it sounds like this was from the spring, from the resurgence of the DNA evidence that spawned this investigation that he conducted into these matters. It seems like that's the renewed interest, at least, was as a result of that. Because I looked at his channel; he's got a number of other true crime stuff he started doing in recent months. So, it seems to be something that I haven't seen his other work, but if it's anything like this one, I'd say it's pretty good. Must be pretty good. And then I got another clip here, more on the occult ritualistic aspects, and then that kind of, those are the comments you were talking about before, Teresa, that regarding that video. I won't play the whole video, but as far as the locals' views on some of the kid stuff going on with this cult, it's definitely within this video here. But this is the tail end of it. Maybe. After these messages, we'll be right back.
Miro? Is it because it's the innovation workspace? Is it because of its AI-powered canvas? Is it because teams stay on the same page from idea to outcome? Yeah, all three. Innovation belongs on the canvas. Innovation belongs on Miro.
It doesn't belong. Oh, come on, YouTube. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm impressed with it.
How many videos? I mean, it's the same video.
Girls out there at the York place are having children. They seem awfully young to me.
They are still active. They're out there. They're pretty pathetic as far as I can see.
I'll be honest. My heart started beating a bit faster when I saw the date that it was posted, April 25th, 2014.
Yeah, this was a solid find.
Just 7 days before the murders of Russell and Shirley Dermond. I decided to put the comments in order of date so that I could scroll back to the beginning and read the comments made around the time of the Dermond murders. This commenter left 3 pretty long comments, but a few lines in particular really stuck out to me. Keep in mind, I've spent days obsessively looking for any Nuwaubian mentioning beheadings or decapitations or cutting heads off, and I hadn't found anything until this moment. You mother effers all are going to pay for what you are doing. Please know this, demons. We are coming for you all. Nowhere to run to. 6 ether demons, nowhere to hide.
Yeah, it's
the
aggressive.
Father and mothers of lies.
Coming
and
in
we shall
hot.
continue to cut the heads off these serpents. Could this just be a coincidence? Of course it could. But let me put this another way.
Oh, there's a boat.
The only instance I could find of the Putnam County,
I think
Georgia
that was a
Nuwaubian
suggestive thing by the
talking about cutting
filmmaker
heads
here.
off was essentially the same week someone had their head cut off in Putnam County, Georgia.
I mean, that's not a bad,
The
it's not a bad
Nuwaubian Nation
suggestion. There
is still
certainly could have been
active
some
to this day.
aquatic activities.
Malachi's in
from style.
prison, so obviously he could not have carried out the act himself, but I don't think that's how he would have done it anyway. What if Malachi ordered the murders of a few white devils as revenge for his incarceration? Or what if a devout follower took actions into their own hands?
Followers always get a little bit more wild than the cult leaders do. You know what I
Tensions
mean?
were high in the Nuwaubian Nation, as not only had the controversial video just been released, but Malachi's 12-year anniversary arrest was coming up on the 8th of May.
That's pretty wild, right?
That was like, yeah.
I mean, the confluence of events right there, the video, the comments, the murders, the anniversary of his arrest.
The timing of everything is just like,
right.
It's chills, you know. I was like, oh my God. That's what I mean. I don't know if people understand like the, you know, I'm sure most of the followers in the cult or maybe not as extreme.
I was just talking about the Sherman murders earlier tonight on Clint Eastwood's podcast.
Were you? Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a second. But I just don't know if people understand like this, how strong the anti-white sentiment is.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that those YouTube messages may seem like an extremist point of view. I think that's kind of like down the middle of what their right, of what their theology is, right? I think that's kind of the average. That's the standard.
I think so, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, like sorry, I don't know what her handle is. Boy or girl, actually. Better propaganda for the end of the Matrix. So apparently that commenter is also Canadian. Yay. But she or he was saying that the murder reminds her of the Shermans case, which I had said that earlier today also.
I can think of the court. That's what made me talk about the Shermans earlier. I didn't talk about this case a lot, but that is what made me talk about the Shermans, that, you know, these prominent elderly couples that seemingly go, you know, clearly getting murdered, but it's a mystery. We don't have any clue, did it?
Yeah, well, that's another one. Like they don't know how they got in and out of the house.
Right.
It seemed to be a professional hit.
Right. Didn't they write it off as a suicide at first? And they're like, oh, they hung themselves in the pool house, right?
There was no way it was a suicide. It's crazy. The way
wasn't
their
that
bodies were found.
That was
something
the
like that.
Right?
Yeah, something like that. It's honestly
wild.
so creepy. That case is so creepy.
Yeah, they have a lot of pharmaceutical connections to the Bill Gates, Clinton, Obama, Bush AIDS franchise.
Yup. Lots.
But yeah, the murders, yeah, definitely that is another example of a professional hit on an elderly couple. Because again, you know, it's another circumstance where they're just like, well, the law enforcement authorities are like, well, we have no idea. How could we know? You know what I mean? Like, what do you want us to do? Our jobs around here? I'm not going to investigate this thing. And again, you know, for whatever reason, the sheriff down there can't solve it. As much beef as he's had with this cult over the years, and as grizzled as he looks from it, you know, he to me, at least in my opinion, it seems like he's the one who can do something about it, right? And he's just like, oh well, we can't figure it out. Lunch, anybody? You know what I mean?
You know, why would he not like think about the cult and possibly having a connection? He's just like, man,
exactly.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. That's a little suspect, right? That's a little suspect, right?
Or he's just like that jaded. I don't know.
I can't tell, right? Because he's obviously a weatherman. He's been through a lot. I think he's been the sheriff for like 30 years.
Yeah. Well, and then he went
gives
on
off a boss hog type impression to me. You know what I mean?
He went on it. I don't know if it was that video or another one that he was saying he was stalked by some of the cult members himself.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. He's gotten some beef with them for over the years, but he's just like, you know what? There's some nice folks. They definitely didn't murder this elderly couple. You know
Maybe
what I mean?
Just saying that because he's afraid he's going to get stalked again or worse.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. You know what I mean? But like, it seems like if anyone can solve this murder or at least do something about it, pin it on somebody. I'm not advocating that necessarily, but if he's got beef with the cult, I'm surprised he's not pinning it on them. Is what I'm getting at, right? You figure these departments are quick to pin it on somebody, and this dude's got beef with the cult. I'm a little surprised he wasn't like, "Hey, cult dude did it," right? It's just a little surprising to me, especially in a racially motivated situation where even if the sheriff's not racially motivated, I think tensions are probably still pretty hot. You know what I mean? Pretty hot.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing. Speaking of that, and speaking of the other stuff that the sheriff has gone through, at one point in time, the local black community did not want to. They lost all support of the local black community in the area. There's little support they had moving in there in the 90s, right? So the Nuwaubians invaded all the local NAACP offices to try to re-garner support for their cult, and quickly lost even more support as a result of finding out that they had, taken over all the NAACP offices to try to, mind control folks and enjoying their cult. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
That's some pretty subversive stuff, Didn't work, but
yeah, that's bugged out that they couldn't even garner support of the black community, right?
Well, it's because, I think it's because of the stuff they were up to. I don't think it was lost on anybody, right? Like, I have to imagine they victimized the families of the local community with some of these activities, right?
I would imagine
stuff is out there.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying, Nick?
I mean, even their belief system is out there anyway.
You mean to tell me ancient alien mound building, pyramid building belief systems are difficult for you to buy into? You don't think that's real? Didn't the dude claim to be part alien himself? Dwight York at one point in time said, "You know what, guys? In fact, I'm actually part alien."
Surprise!
Yeah,
fooled you.
Surprise! I'm going to need some more money, but it's only to fund my part alien.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting though? A lot of their beliefs have trickled into other things. Like there's a lot of connection to New Age. Like a lot of the stuff to talk about on Gaia would be straight out of
really?
Dwight York's book. Yeah. And that
okay.
guy Billy Carson.
Oh, I could see them getting along. I could see him getting along with Billy Carson.
I think it's they believe the exact same things.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Maybe Billy Carson's a Nuwaubian. We don't know that.
Probably is.
I mean, you're right. He does. You're on target. He definitely espouses some of the same ancient Egyptian kind of alien belief system. You're spot on. I honestly think it's some sort of mind control. I'll go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Then you have Billy Carson going on huge podcasts and on national podcast. TV. Even it's probably in stuff on A&E and History Channel, stuff like that. Going around as this legit historian. Which,
the Emerald Book or whatever he talks about, right?
That's literally the exact same thing. It's crazy.
No, you're right.
That's interesting.
Well, you saw Outcasts in their green costumes. That's the Emerald. They do have a big Emerald thing within the cult. You're spot on there. That's interesting you bring that up because he did do Rogan, right? And then he did Rogan Jr. and then Diet Rogan. All those other under Rogans.
Yeah, Sean Ryan
yeah,
show. Diet Rogan, exactly. Actually, we were talking about occultism and music recently. Didn't we do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When we talk about the to me, the idea of perpetrating this belief system is through the hip hop scene, right? I don't think it would exist. I don't think it would exist without that. That marketing, the marketing aspects of going through the hip hop scene.
Yeah, no, exactly. I remember on that show I brought up an example of a reggaeton artist, Ozuna, using the green, the whole emerald vibes in his shows, and Chris Brown does that with the aliens. It's everywhere.
Oh, Chris Brown. That's another good candidate for being a member of this cult, isn't it?
Oh, most likely. And in the comments as well, someone brought up the Boule Society.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
He does Egypt tours with Jimmy Church. Is this Billy Carson? That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think that's
Jimmy Church is a big alien guy, right?
Yeah.
Diet Rogan. Yeah, everyone's trying to be Rogan now. It's the new thing.
I love it.
Yeah. So Chris Brown. Well, look at Kanye. Didn't he do a couple alien songs himself? Didn't he do like some song with Katy
Did he call
Perry?
himself an alien? Yeah, Dark Horse. Dark Horse.
You know about this? What is this?
Dark Horse with Katy Perry.
Dark Horse with Katy. Don't they talk about like channeling an alien?
I think he says he is an alien or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but did he channel the alien or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like there's some sort of incarnation or channeling of an alien in there. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely ancient alien related.
Yes. Very much so.
You know, I don't know if Kanye subscribes to these kind of situations, or maybe he was just influenced by it, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to go do my own thing.
That's totally. I'm sorry, I'm a totally different person. That's not Kanye and Dark Horse.
Oh,
I was gonna say, I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I don't know this. I don't know this music that well. I just know that he did a song with Katy Perry. I feel like
I'm almost positive I've heard him call himself an alien though.
And it was this song was alien related.
You know who's big into the alien thing too? Missy Elliott.
I could be getting some names wrong, but Kanye was definitely involved in it.
Yeah, Missy Elliott's huge on that stuff, on the imagery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes, very much.
I'm not that familiar with some of this music, but I'm not surprised to hear these things because, again, when you have somebody like Dwight York and Africa Bambaataa involved in this early onset of this whole hip hop scene, and everyone still pays homage to these men, despite York being in prison for kid trafficking, kid diddling, in a supermax prison next to terrorists. They still seem to pay homage to him, and I just think that's what's permeating this whole. You know, throughout again, it seems to just permeate throughout the whole hip hop scene. I've never been a big hip hop fan, so I'm kind of looking at it from the outside in, and I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You bring up Chris Brown, I immediately am like, yeah, I could see that dude fit into this scene. And that's when I immediately was like, well, I think Kanye did an alien song. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Brown, that he's done the alien songs. Yeah, I mean.
Chris Brown, it's not even his songs. It's like the imagery that he uses in his albums, like on his tours and stuff. It's like, whoa, It's like very overt. Same with Missy Elliott. It's like UFOs coming down in the concert. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think where he comes from, and I think folks of the interwebs have probably they've heard Operation GCD and me talking about, or even on the Occult Rejects, me talking about ancient alien cargo cults. I assert they all work together. And as we saw in the introductory of that Grammy performance by Nuwaubian Outcast of the 2004 Grammys, that was Jack Black, a presumed Scientologist who, again, paid homage to L. Ron Hubbard and his Tenacious D songs, doing a little introduction there. So it just seems to me like it's a little ancient alien cargo cult working together, Yeah. It's like the mashup introduction to the show here tonight with the Jay-Z and the Beach Boys song. Yeah, here we go. E.T. with Katy Perry. Thank you. I appreciate that. I knew there was an alien song. Yeah, like that's all about like incarnation of an alien or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of the reincarnation thing, that's in X-Men Apocalypse. Like the opening scene. Yeah, they're like trying to like transfer bodies. Is that dang?
Of course,
of course.
They put that one up, but I'll put it back up in a second.
They're trying to transfer an alien. Yeah, well, they're trying to transfer bodies. Nice. For sure, she does. But yeah, they're trying to transfer the spirit from one mutant to inhabit the body to another, and to carry on the spirit of Apocalypse. Which
I didn't realize the X-Men got into that, but I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah, in the X-Men Apocalypse movie, and it's he's from Egypt, the alien, and they're trying to carry. I believe, if I'm not remembering correctly, but I believe it's the spirit of like Ra being transferred over, and that's the same in Stargate. Same thing.
Yep.
Right. So
I assert also. I've made this statement plenty of times before, and I'll make it again. Make it again in the future too, probably. But Marvel Comics and DC Comics are this, in my opinion, are some sort of fan fiction to this thelemic science fiction ancient alien cargo cult worldview, right? And it's funny you mentioned that that's more Marvel stuff, and they can't Blade. That's Marvel, with Wesley Snipes here. I just think a lot of the actors that are involved in these Marvel projects are members of the cult or one of these cults that again work together, right?
Yes. Subscribe to at least one.
I can't think of anything else when you're describing the X-Men thing. Again, I'm pretty sure that is the description of that Kanye song, like the whole incarnation situation. So it does seem to be the same concept.
Yes.
The Raelians. Yeah. Kanye, didn't he tweet their logo and that's what got him banned from Twixter?
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The
And
swastika?
if anyone's a Raelian, it's Elon, for goodness sake.
Oh yeah.
Or at least
I can
his
see him being into
ex-wife
that.
Grimes.
Yeah. They were definitely into some occult stuff, it seems, by the looks of them, right?
Oh, yeah. Who's she with?
Especially
She's with
her.
somebody else now who's like super.
Wasn't there another artist that like had this story where she was like, "Hey, I got called over to their house to do some weird sex stuff," and they were into all this weird ritual sex stuff, like sex magic, and she bailed. I think I read that on Crazy Days and Nights, the entertainment lawyer's blog.
Oh damn. Oh yeah.
I don't remember which other artist, but yeah, because Grimes was like some sort of musical artist, right?
Yeah, some sort. She's Canadian too, actually.
Is she?
Some sort. She
gets her coffee at Tim Hortons, is what you're saying.
She may. She's definitely had a double for Timmy Hose for sure.
Oh, I want a double from Timmy Hose right now, actually.
No, so her new boyfriend is that DJ Anima, which we talked about on the same like occultism and music show or whatever. And he's super into like the AI imagery and transhumanist imagery. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So speaking of all this imagery, the what y'all picked up on and watching this.
If we look at the Dermonds specifically, they owned 19 fast food franchises. So at one time they had hundreds of employees under them.
And the way to hit them is stop working for them and start working for self and kind.
There's some Shriners cap going on, right?
Business from the inside out.
Well,
Stop
Dr.
giving
York.
yourself to them as slaves and then expecting to treat you other than a slave.
There we go. We talking about working for the white man right there.
Working for them. My philosophy is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I'm not
There we
into
go.
turning the other
Eye
cheek.
for
I
an
may
eye.
be a Christian, but I don't believe in turning the other cheek. I think it's just a matter of time before people get the courage to start striking back. But they don't want you hurting them. And I think it's time for black people to start realizing that when they hurt you, hurt them back.
I was watching a documentary series.
I mean, I can see where folks at least can start pointing the finger at these folks for such a crime.
And read this comment about Malachi being.
Unless you're the sheriff. The sheriff's going to be like, I'm going to get you hands off on this
from
here,
his
folks.
first group in New York and was born in Massachusetts.
He just doesn't want any
I
trouble.
didn't realize that from age 12, he grew up in New Jersey. New Jersey also happens to be where the Dermonds are from, Hackensack to be more specific. I remember thinking there's probably...
Yeah, so I think we won't go too much into it there, but the guy, I highly recommend watching this fellow's video and investigation. He goes into the background of how the Dermonds and Dwight York very likely could have crossed paths in the past there in their New Jersey connections. But we saw Dwight York kind of doing the aggressive, don't work for the white man, you're a slave campaign there with his Shriners cap. And Nick, you put together a number of photographs here relative to this Masonic. There's the clip we just saw with Mr. York, Dwight York, the currently incarcerated at the Supermax prison next to terrorists. I'm just saying, this guy not a good guy, not a good guy. Despite whatever hip hop wants to tell folks, I'm going to go ahead and say not a good guy. But that's him right there, and he's clearly got what we got here, the Nuwaubian Grand Lodge of Freemasonry. Now, why did they do a P in there? You think? What's that about?
No, it's the Eye of Ra, I think, in the compass and square.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
But there is a P in the name though. The difference.
Instead of Nuwaubian,
they're interchangeable. The terms are interchangeable. Yeah. I don't know.
That makes sense to me for some reason. I don't know why, because in Korea they interchange K's and G's. I'm like, what is going on with your all's language? What's going on here? Don't do these things.
It's confusing.
Don't do these things. It's confusing. Yeah, the Shriners dress like clowns. Yeah, they do dress like. I mean, they have some interesting costumes. And this dude's kind of amalgamated a number of things going on here. He's got the Shriners hat. So, what are your all's what's your all's analysis here on this Nuwaubian Lodge? Because it's not an official deal, right? Like, this is kind of a unofficial.
Oh no, that's what all the other slides are. This guy had like 6 secret societies under his name. I had no idea.
Right. But I'm saying, like, all of these are kind of his own. Like, he's not like, he calls it the Grand Lodge, right? Because he is the Grand Lodge, right?
Yeah, but they are actually I think, recognized.
So this is a different organization?
That one is the probably the Shriners one that he has. He had
the Mind.
Where is it? I just pulled up the site.
By the Grand Al Mufti Divan.
Mufti.
Mufti?
Mufti. I think it's a
And a lot-
MUFTI.
Yeah, I don't know. Novik, Reverend Dr. Malachi
Zodok.
Zadok.
L.
Yeah, he did have the
York L, yeah, 33 degree, 720 degree. What's he doing? Dude, he's doing some Tony Hawk maneuvers. He's got a 720 degree.
Tony Hawk.
Dude,
Nice
that's
one.
crazy. So what is it? So what are you saying? Like, do you think this is how is an organization if this isn't sanctioned, if this isn't official, like how does an organization like this exists?
Well, I actually think that they probably are legit orders. I do think so.
Okay. So this would be like Prince Hall Freemasonry stuff.
This is the Shriner one that he has. He has a lodge number 19 for the Shriners.
So the Shriners would fall under the actual Shriners organization, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Because that really thickens the plot with all of these activities, then, right?
I mean, it's the Howdy's wearing Shriners hats.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I imagine they're making a lot. Well, that's what I was getting at with official, though, right? Like, is this did he just? I can go put on a hat right now, but I'm
That's
not.
true.
That's,
That's true.
that's what I'm saying. But he's making a lot of money, I imagine, through this. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the actual Shriners gonna be like, wait a second, bud. You can't be making all this cash and not cutting this in on the transactions. You know what I mean?
He also had the Order of the Eastern Star for the women.
For the women, they had a women's organization of the Eastern Star, huh?
Yeah, he had the Ancient and Mystic Order of Melchizedek. He had the Ancient and Mystic Order of Atum Re, not Ra, but Re, R-E.
The Melchizedek is the women's organization?
No, the International Order of the Eastern Star. That's for the women.
What's this fellow?
Let me see. That's him right there.
That's York?
Yep.
What's he posing as? This is his official 33rd degree photograph.
The Supreme Grand, what was it, Hierophant? I think it says on the bottom too. It has a bunch of different things under there. This is.
Yeah, I don't know how to. Unfortunately, I'm not proficient enough of zooming in on this slide right now.
He's a Grand Master of the Nuwaubian Grand Lodge internationally.
But from my research, this started in what 2004, right? Circa.
Yes, I think his did. Let me see.
Yeah, like that, which is a strange time. Again, that's when they're doing the Grammys performance. It just seems like they're peacocking at that time, so to speak, right? They're really letting their wings out, you know, getting their feet underneath themselves as a cult. And 2004, right when the FBI was like, I don't think so, York, you're going to prison, bud. So like he's starting this organization right at the same time he's going to prison. It seems. I just think it's interesting timing. I'm not saying he's not still running the shit from prison because the let's face it, goes on organized crime all the time, right? Not just the Italians, but organized crime in general. But I'm just saying, like, it is interesting timing. It seems where he went full Grand Lodge at the same time he's going to prison.
Yeah, it's definitely odd. Or was it just like a renegade follower?
Yeah, I don't know.
Into their own hands, right?
I don't know.
But
it's a good question because they're still operating, right? This is their current stuff.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found sites for
Nolans.
Yep.
The 132nd Imperial Council session. So, did he take over another organization?
What do you mean? Well, it's his
132 years.
No, it's probably like what they're probably going to is that's probably something that's been going on for a while that all different Shrine of Lodges go to. It's probably
maybe.
Oh, okay. And they're just attending this one?
Yes.
What's that at the top? AEAONMS. What's that?
Yeah. Let's find out. I don't know. AEAO.
Oh, Ancient Egyptian Arabic Order Nobles Mystic something.
You're
Society?
fast. You're quick. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. I guess it's let's see, they're part of the Daughters of Isis is their sister organization, like their Eastern Star organization. I just want to see if again, like if these are not sanctioned, I just have a problem with it. Like the Masons are either a bunch of basic bitches and they can't stop anything, or these are sanctioned because someone's getting this money. You know, there's no transactions of this kind of money. Again, they build a 437 acre compound. There's no in running some Masonic organizations out there. There's some money coming in there where somebody's going to want to cut. You're not collecting stuff in the name of the Shriners, being like, oh, cool, yeah, we're just going to be accepting that. But this one claims to be incorporated all the way back into 1893. Wow, okay, fair enough.
Actually, just found a. Sorry, go ahead, JJ.
No, go ahead. I was just saying this seems to be official according to what I'm reading here.
Yeah, so I just found a little thing on Googling that acronym.
Oh, shit.
So it says the Shriners International, formerly known as the Ancient Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, is an American Masonic society founded in 1872 in New York City. It is headquartered in Tampa, Florida. Now has 200 chapters across 9 countries with a global membership of nearly 200,000 Shriners.
Damn, that's a big organization.
And old, 1872.
Well, apparently there's another organization here that falls under this umbrella, which is one that's been of interest to me as of late, and that's the Knights of Pythias. They have they call the Colored Knights of Pythias.
Colored Knights.
Out of 1880, actually says it's founded in 1864, but officially became a black organization in 1880. Looks like under the National Supreme Lodge of Grand Lodges. It says. Which again, this is all part of the Prince Hall framework of Masonry, which I find that interesting with relative to modern day interactions between Freemasonry, because to my understanding, I think it was like 20 years ago was the first time that the Prince Hall Freemasons and the Scottish Rite Freemasons had a joint conference, and it was 33rd degree Freemason Carl Linder of Cincinnati, Ohio, of all places, that was behind the organization of that conference. This is the fellow who used to own Kings Island, the amusement park, the Cincinnati Reds, Great American Insurance, a very large corporate insurance provider. Big money, 33rd degree Freemason guy. Brought them all together like 20 years ago. I just find it odd that there's such disparity, it seems like, between these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
That they would operate for so many years without any sort of joint conferences or whatnot, right? I don't understand the ins and outs of it, right? So they may have different Freemasonic belief systems. I have no idea, but I'm just saying it seems odd. And I didn't know there was the Colored Knights of Pythias. That's brand new information to me.
I never heard of
but,
that before.
these organizations, they do all, that's what I'm saying. They usually, to me, they all seem to work together, but when they don't work together, I find that that to be the anomaly, right? So this is the Ancient and Mystic Order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek's an interesting name to get. I think that's like, we're talking about Old Testament stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Mormons, they have a magical order of Melchizedek.
Yep.
Yes, they do.
I believe I was I'm sorry, disregard. I call it magical order. They call it priesthood. They never enjoyed it when I called it magical order either. But yeah, I think I got inducted into that. I was 14, I believe.
Oh shit.
Yeah, same Melchizedek. I don't know who this Melchizedek character is, but he seems important to a lot of different organizations, from the Mormon Ancient Aliens to the Nuwaubian Ancient Aliens. But what was your take on this Ancient and Mystic Order of Melchizedek?
Wasn't much I could find on it. I just showed that there's a Facebook page that shows it's still in existence. It could be. But
so,
yeah,
did you see, is there a Masonic deal? What are we talking here?
This one, it could just be something that he started with, like his own belief system. I have no idea. Or it could be falling under
seemed to shift.
Yeah.
His belief system seemed to shift by the week, right? He went through so many identities, right?
Depending on which theory he's pimping out that week.
Right. He adapted so many different names. He actually at one point adapted a Native American name, didn't he? I think I remember that.
Yeah.
I gotta look that one up. That was a good one. Yeah, he had so many names.
Well, I know biblically, Jesus is supposed to be from the lineage and the priesthood of Melchizedek.
Oh, is that how that works? Okay, well, I appreciate. I knew it was important, but I appreciate the context there. So that is a very important character then.
Yeah. So just quickly to give some context,
sure.
The Bible so the Bible describes Jesus as a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek in Psalm 110. And in Hebrews chapter 7, it explains that Jesus is a priest in the order of Melchizedek because he was not a descendant of Aaron, and therefore would not qualify for the Jewish priesthood under the law of Moses. So just indicating that Jesus' priesthood is not determined by his genetics, I guess.
Nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So it is a very interesting character then. I can see why it's being used across numerous theologies here amongst the ancient alien cargo cult folks, including Chief Black Eagle. That was the name that Dwight York decided he was. But only when they moved down to Georgia. He's like, you know what, folks? We're no longer in the Big Apple. We're going down to Georgia. You can call me Chief Black Eagle now.
My God. So many names.
But I wonder if these were just different phases he went through, or by different phases, I mean different money laundering operations he set up. Because if he's sex trafficking, right, he's got to do something with that cash. So he's like, you know what, run a couple $100,000 through the ancient and mystic order of Melchizedek. And folks are like, well, what is that? And he's like, exactly. No one's ever going to find, you know what I mean? Maybe this isn't even a thing. Maybe this only exists as a Facebook page and the idea of laundering money from Dwight York.
Maybe that's all you need to show the IRS. Like you have a location.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no, we have meetings. Yeah, we got a Facebook page. Yeah. We got followers, right?
Tax exempt.
Approved.
Perfect. Ready to go. That's how the Mormons do it.
Well, I wonder how they have the Scientology deal, because they have the Dwight York, book, all these book centers everywhere, right? And the one in Brooklyn as well. And what Scientology has done is somehow sell all of L. Ron Hubbard's books and his bookstores and Scientology's all under the same tax-free umbrella. So I wonder if they have a similar situation for all of Dwight York's books, and all of the cult's books are all under the same tax-free umbrella.
That's a good question.
You know what I mean? Because remember, we went through a lot of their tax stuff, and it seemed like they set up their entities similar to Scientology, where each org, or in this case, a book club or bookstore. I'm going to keep calling it book club, bookstore. Each Nuwaubian bookstore was its own separate corporate entity. That's the same way Scientology sets up their structure. I'm just saying.
Makes sense, though.
Interesting.
Real gives me some real Xenu vibes. The this one seems pretty elaborate though. Which one's this one? The Holy Tabernacle Ministry?
Ministry, yeah.
Goodness
got a lot of Shriner stuff going on here, huh? A lot of Nation of Islam stuff, maybe?
It's got a lot going on or something.
It's got a lot of something, all right.
Yeah.
Why? What's this? The Ankh? What are we talking here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got the Eye of Providence. They love that.
Eddie Murphy coming to America.
He does kind of. He does. I thought that too.
Oh my God! Totally looks like him. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I don't know who this character's supposed to be. I'm assuming this is Black Jesus. I'm just saying from my initial assessment. When I first saw this, I'm like, oh, there's Eddie Murphy and Black Jesus.
I feel like there's a Black Moses that looks like that or something.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I could be wrong.
Could be a Black Moses.
I don't know.
Either way, it's a lot of stuff going on here. So
Maybe
this is another organization, right? This is separate from the Melchizedek Order. This is separate from the Nuwaubian Lodge.
It's so confusing.
Is that correct, Nick? Is that the situation?
Say it again.
This is a separate situation than the Nuwaubian Grand Lodge.
Yeah. These are all separate that he has. Yeah.
These are all separate deals, right? So the dude's got a lot of stuff going on, right? He invented hip hop. He's part alien. He's building pyramids. He's running all of these organizations. I'm saying he's a busy dude.
And then he still had time to diddle all those kids.
And he still had time to. I already got rid of that slide with the kids running around there, but it's unfortunate that there was every kid's picture on that compound. It's sad. It's real sad.
Yeah. In his spare time. God.
Yeah, my free time here. After the Al Mandi Sharuk, what do we got here? Al Mahdi Shrines. What are we talking here?
Yeah, it's Temple 19. That's the Shriner Lodge, yeah.
Different Shriner. He's got two Shriner stuff?
That I think was an advertisement showing them for going somewhere.
Oh, so this is their local organization. That was the national conference.
Yes.
Damn, that storm's coming in hot. Is that what you're telling me?
What? Yes.
I don't know much about the Boulets. Do y'all know much Boule stuff?
Nope.
I just know LeBron James has a tattoo of their logo on his chest, basically.
It's supposed to be like Prince Hall related, Freemasonry related, though, right?
Yeah, it's basically for elite Black people, more or less. Yeah, or if you want to be an elite, you got to be part of one.
Wow.
Prince Hall or Boulay.
The storm just got nuts here. I hope my interwebs don't cut out here, but it's windy and raining.
Oh, dang.
All right. I don't know. I think we did a good job covering this some of this situation as far as, a good primer to folks. I put a link to that dude, the investigative journalist dude's video in the show chat here. I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, I highly recommend checking out more on those murders. There's really not much else to say about the murders, I don't think. The one we covered. Did y'all think we missed anything? Just on the murders specifically?
Be interesting if someone ever gets pinned for it.
Yeah.
Well, they have that touch DNA now, so let's see who they.
Let's see who touched.
Well, I'm always curious about these touch DNAs and the whatever science is going behind these things and the people involved in it, right? Like we've covered it in the Idaho 4 series we've done, Nick, with Ron there from Wicked Planet. Mm-hmm. We've covered the use of the touch DNA and the investigative genealogy that has been conducted relative to Penn in the case and properly on Brian Koberger. But some of the folks behind this are very odd folks, if you ask me. Like in that case, it was Othram Labs out of Texas, which is financed by one of the PayPal mafia, Elon Musk's buddies, through the Silicon Valley Bank. And that they collapsed, last year, or I guess 2 years ago, I think now, right? So, there's some very shady, seems like some very shady financial stuff behind these private labs that are suddenly making this revolutionary discoveries, and I think are largely improperly using the technology. I'm not saying that you can't find DNA at a location and do reverse kind of engineering through investigative genetic genealogy, IgG. I agree, that certainly can be done. What I'm saying is they're finding this touch DNA using the PCR test to amplify it, right? And then they're increasing the volume of samples exponentially. They're like to make it look like there's more evidence there than there isn't, right? So that's the problems I have. I think that if you find an actual DNA sample and you can reverse engineer that, great. That's certainly plausible and it obviously can be done. That doesn't seem what's been going on with these touch DNA situations, right? The inventor of the PCR test, Kerry Mullis, the guy that was kind of infamously brought to light during the 2020 shutdown of the world, because his test was being used improperly. He was dead 6 months before the shutdown, but that just seems convenient. But he volunteered to testify for O.J. Simpson, saying the state was improperly using his PCR test to frame O.J. Simpson with DNA, and he was right. This is the dude who won a Nobel Prize for the test. I think he knew what he was talking about. You know what I mean? It's his test. Mm-hmm. So they're doing the same shit with that. That's why I get concerned when they're doing these things, and especially private labs. Another prominent private lab, not Othram, happens to be located Parabon Nanolabs. They're like the premier in this technology and IgG investigations. They're the top of the game in that market, and they're located in Reston, Virginia, which is Spookville, USA. You know what I mean? Just makes you wonder. And some of the stuff they're involved in is spook activities within that corporation, right? Just makes you wonder what's really going on with some of these magical tricks, if you ask me, they're doing with some of this DNA. So I don't have a lot of confidence necessarily that they're going to solve anything here.
Yeah, it doesn't sound
with this touch DNA stuff.
Yeah,
and they don't necessarily seem motivated, right? Again, the sheriff is just like, yeah, somebody did it. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't.
It really just sounds like he does not want to disturb that rock. Yeah, he does not want to look under there. He's like, I don't know. Doesn't want trouble.
He's not into it. He's not into it. Because again, like, I mean, it's good for him. He did the interview and whatnot, but like, the real question is, why haven't you solved this, bud? Like, what's going on, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, maybe the cult did. Like, doesn't seem like anyone really cares. That's what these cases like this, like the Sherman case, like when no one really cares and everyone's trying to pretend like it's not some sort of obvious hit, like a professional murder. Like, I'm like, let's look at the obvious here, folks. Like somebody knew what they were doing when they killed these folks, and this is obviously murder.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's in those situations where it's so obvious, and then the cops are just like, I don't know, somebody did it.
Maybe they were either paid off, or they don't want to start in this case of the
There you
in
go.
Georgia. Maybe they don't want to start like a racial war.
Well, that's where I was going to probably getting paid off. I mean, I'm not going to start pointing fingers, but let's just look at a similar kind of weird political circumstance popping off in an area, not all that too far from this area of Georgia, and that's southern Kentucky there, where that sheriff popped off that judge in his own office and shot him. And there was implications of child stuff going on around that. So like that whole situation, to my understanding, hasn't fully been flushed out. Everyone's really like, oh, we're not going to discuss motive. You know what I mean? The sheriff claimed he did it. He's on video doing it. Of course he's going to admit doing it. But apparently the judge had inappropriate communications with the sheriff's daughter on his phone. Yeah.
Wow.
Y'all not familiar with this case?
No.
Oh, dude shot him right on camera. Sheriff just said, boom, you're done. They went out to lunch, came back into the judge's office. Dude's on camera looking at the judge's phone. They'd known each other for years. The judge in this rural county there in Kentucky. The now sheriff, or then until recently sheriff, he had been the bailiff for that judge. So they had a long-term professional relationship, at least, right?
Oh, wow.
Personal. But there was something that tripped dude off about seeing the judge's phone about communications with his daughter. And on camera in the judge's office, he just pops him and kills him right there.
Wow.
Walks out like they just, nothing happened.
Some Michael Corleone stuff. Jeez.
Right?
Took him to lunch. Took him out.
Implications around kid stuff there. I'm just saying, when you get to these counties, like if Dwight York's running a sex trafficking operation out of a rural county in Georgia, like how much, and the feds busted, right? Well, how much did the local sheriff know? Because the feds are the one that busted it, right? Not the local. Yeah. The local sheriff's not like, I saved the day, guys. I busted the cult. No, that's not what happened here. The feds came in there and did that.
Yeah. You probably knew about it the whole time.
Well, when you're saying taking money, I'm telling you, I've seen some of the photographs of that nightclub. A lot of money going in and out of this place. There's no doubt about it, just through that nightclub, let alone these Masonic organizations, the Shriners, the Devil Shriners, the Melchizedeks. I mean, there's a lot of money getting passed around here. I'm just saying. It seems like there may have been some local officials getting paid off. You know what I mean? Yes, the sheriff's obviously gotten his beef with the cult, but has he? You know what I mean? Like, he's still around, right? You know what I mean?
How much of a beef is it really?
Yeah, like he didn't bust these people at all. I mean, he busted them on little stuff, right? Petty things, right? But like the state came in with the liquor license, operating the club without the liquor license. That wasn't him. And then the feds came in with the diddling stuff. That wasn't him. You know what I mean? What at some point in time when you're like, look here, buddy, what are you doing? 28 years as the sheriff? You know, like what have you done? You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm hypercritical about some law enforcement, lackadaisical law enforcement like that. But it seems odd when so many crimes are being committed and the sheriff's just twiddling his thumbs like somebody did it. You know what I mean? Like, what? I'm not worried about somebody did it.
Somebody.
You have to. It's a ritzy community. The community's got to be concerned, right? Like, it's a wealthy community. Unsolved murder of an elderly couple that got murked in their house with almost no evidence. I have to imagine these rich people of that lake community, if not the county, are like, we're concerned about this, right? But the sheriff, he didn't seem concerned.
Cool as a cucumber.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Definitely weird.
It is strange. I mean, I didn't really know about this case until I saw that video, and definitely keep an eye on it. But I appreciate Nick, Theresa. I appreciate y'all joining me to talk some ancient alien cargo cults and mound murders. Do y'all have any closing thoughts on the subject and/or what's up next on the Occult Rejects and Spiritual Gangsters, for that matter? Apologize for Theresa.
No, that's okay.
I find this just a very interesting case. I find it weird that they both lived near each other and then moved again. Too much just weird stuff on with that guy. I think it's quite possible that there's some sort of hit was going on, a retaliation or in a war, possibly between orders. Maybe I have no idea.
Dueling wizards.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But I definitely think
doing wizard stuff
here with this connection for sure. Seems weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indian burial ground stuff for sure. Theresa, what were your? Do you have any closing thoughts here on the subject? But I appreciate those thoughts, Nick. I definitely agree with you there, man. It's definitely seems to be like possibly some occult stuff at hand here again. Seems to be a lot of beef between these factions, the Dermonds and the Nuwaubians over the years. And again, the proximities they lived in, very odd, very odd. But yeah, very Theresa, odd. Did you have any closing thoughts on the subjects here tonight?
Yeah,
Appreciate your time again.
Well, thank you for having me. This was really interesting to discuss. But yeah, I mean, I think if for people to take away anything, I'd say like encourage them to look into like the Nuwaubian beliefs. Yeah, definitely look into like the Nuwaubian Nation beliefs, and you'd be surprised like how prevalent it is in our popular culture, and even in like the conspiracy community. Like a lot of like the more pseudo spiritual things that float around, these kind of concepts, where they come from, you might be surprised. So yeah,
Billy Carson, that was a great example you brought up. I mean, that immediately clicked with me because, like, again, I saw the Emerald connection immediately and the ancient Egyptian thoughts, the alien thoughts. I'm like, well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and how it all ties back to, there's a lot of talk about aliens, UAPs, UFOs right now.
Big time.
So brush up.
I'm not buying any of it, but there's a lot of it going on.
There is. I think we'll see a lot more once Trump is inaugurated, and I think that'll be the.
Oh, I hope so. It needs to get more exciting. I want to see some better special effects.
And we need better psyops, man. Like, make me believe some more of the world's shit over here. Let's do it.
Exactly.
Pop it off. No, I'm kidding. I don't want that to happen.
I'm unimpressed with the level of taxpayer psyops that are going on here. We're spending a lot of money. I want to see a better product.
Exactly. Where's my blue beam at? Come on. Let's go. But yeah, brush up. That's all I would say.
Nice. I appreciate it. That's good stuff. Yeah, I get it. You're right. It's real strong in the hip hop industry. Real strong. Not just Jay-Z, not just podcasts.
They're very influential in the hip hop community. That says
big
something.
Time.
It says something, in my opinion.
Yep.
Big time.
Yeah.
And what's up? So what's up next in your all's? You got anything planned for the Occult Rejects coming up, Nick, or the Spiritual Gangsters, Theresa?
Anything? Well, for us, yeah. I mean, I got a couple of things scheduled to start recording. And hopefully going to start with maybe two of the smaller ones, but I'm going to finally start with these documentaries. So I'm going to get those pumped out.
Nice.
Hopefully. Yeah. I'm going to cover catacombs with Theresa. Then I think the next one probably be Nashville with Lisa, and then eventually Untermeyer Park with you and Lisa.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, Untermeyer Park.
Yeah.
To get into more of that subject.
Yeah, the other ones
get a better understanding of the mounds there, because there was a mound location that I'm aware of, but I don't have a great in-depth knowledge of.
Yeah, the ones that I'm going to do first are just much shorter to do. You know what I'm saying? A lot less.
Sure, work your way up. I like it.
Yeah, just to get them out, honestly. Yeah.
No, Nashville's an interesting location. Just its history, even in the pre-colonial times, I believe it was a fairly busy French kind of fur trader thoroughfare. They have all the ancient, Greek stuff going on. They got the mound stuff there. They got smiley face killer stuff going on there, which we've discussed with the Raleigh Strain case. Lots of stuff going on there.
Yeah, but I could say going forward, I will have to say there's a long list of topics that once we start working on, it should be some really good bangers and informational stuff coming from the Occult Rejects in the next month or two. So keep an eye out. Yes.
Well, I put your all's link there in the chat, in the show notes. Not in the chat, in the show notes. Link tree and whatnot. Yeah, I'm speaking of ancient alien cargo cults. I'm talking more ancient alien cargo cults next Wednesday night here on Operation GCD Live, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Times with Ryder Lee from Raised by Giants podcast, who's done a large catalog of podcasts on the topic of ancient alien cargo cults. So I'm excited to have that conversation with them. Not just the Nuwaubian folks. There's a vast quantity of these ancient alien cargo cults.
Oh yeah, I think me and him even touched on that when we were talking about kind of like the whole UFO psyop thing. I think you even
you all did definitely touch on that. That's what made me reach out to him. I remember when I heard that, and we had that conversation with him about JFK, and but I remember mentioning it to him then that I definitely have to pick his brain on some of these ancient alien cargo cults. He has an extensive knowledge there of them. Definitely relative to our current times of these alien psyops too, right? Because you all definitely touch base on that.
Yes.
All right. Well,
you should mention your thing on Friday.
Closing thoughts? Yep. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
what
Go
about
ahead.
you?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Me and JJ, we're going to start going live like every Friday at night. So something to look forward to.
Fun times. There you go.
Yeah, we're gonna do a Thanksgiving roast. Roast
yeah,
by smoke session. You know.
Oh yeah, that was fun. It was like a little
nice.
hangout.
You saw it? Nice. Oh yeah,
I think I saw a little bit of it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
we're gonna do that again as a regular thing. I had a good time. Nick had a good time. Seems like I'm glad you enjoyed that. Seems like folks enjoyed it.
Did.
I like bouncing ideas, in that environment. It helps me get ideas for shows to do. Getting some of the thoughts out of my brain hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, got a lot of thoughts stuck up there sometimes. I appreciate Nick and Teresa. I appreciate y'all's time, folks of the interwebs. Any other closing messages besides Friday night smoke sessions?
Nope.
No. All right. Fair enough.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.